Today, I want to be talking about the very historical and significant Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings. This is between 1982 to 1989. We had 25,000 eyewitnesses that reported seeing a very large boomerang-shaped craft, gray in color, metallic. It had tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom of the craft itself. This craft was seen on March 24th, 1983, over the Taconic Parkway, where hundreds of people pulled off to the side of the road. I want to provide a voice for those witnesses who are no longer with us. Ed Burns is gone. Monique O'Driscoll is gone. Dennis Sant is gone. They're no longer with us. So I think it's important that we retain a very important part of our historical national history here. Someone has to do this. So in this presentation today, I want to give you the dates, the names, the locations, the times, and I invite you to challenge me and verify this on your own. I'm providing you the breadcrumbs to follow so that you can follow up on these sightings and check this information for yourself. We're talking about thousands of eyewitnesses over almost a 10-year time period. It really is technically the largest UFO flap in history for sheer number and duration. Okay, let me hit you with the evidence of where I'm getting this information. So we're going to go off to the left here. Night Siege, the Hudson Valley Sightings by Dr. J. Allen Hynek and Philip J. Imbrogno with Bob Pratt. Over 5,000 sightings in the last 5 years. So Philip Imbrogno's research was solid research in the early stages here. So credit goes to him for doing it. And I still sign off that his original early work on this subject was good work. Hudson Valley UFO is the best evidence by my good friend Linda Zimmerman. Highly regarded. She's a great friend. So that's a really good resource. And then Silent Over the Hudson, the 1980s UAP wave over the Hudson Valley, M.E. Dorvey. Kind of a newcomer, as far as I can tell, within this publication. This is a new book, and I think it's something that we should also consider. Now, I want to talk about the cross-section of society. So when you look at this picture here, what you can see is the Hudson Valley. This is an hour north of New York City, and you can kind of tell that people were trying to escape the hustle and bustle of downtown Manhattan, New York City, and an hour north, you've got the Hudson Valley. So we've got engineers, teachers, lawyers, mechanics, artists, college students, blue-collar workers, and IBM executives. In other words, a group of people that cannot be easily fooled. That's what we want to consider today. So you've got beautiful low rolling hills, and you've got wide open expansive areas, and you've got the river going right through the center of the whole scene here with the Indian Point nuclear power reactor. So you've got the Hudson River. Now, I thought it was important that we start out with Abraham Lincoln here. And this is what he said: "You may fool all of the people some of the time. You can even fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time." And that's something that we want to consider as we go through these slides here. Now, if all of the Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings by eyewitnesses during the 1980s could be boiled down to one word, it would be industrial. That's probably the best term for describing these series of sightings. They were industrial. Other words to describe the Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings: they were bold, they were presumptuous, they were arrogant, they were brazen. And Webster's Dictionary, brazen, bold, and without shame. Like this Hudson Valley Boomerang, this Westchester wing, it wanted to be seen. That is the impression from the eyewitnesses. Hudson Valley UFO critical dates. So I want to rip through. These are the reports that we're going to be going over here. December 31st, 1982, that was the beginning of the sightings. February 26, 1983, Monique O'Driscoll, she had a very significant sighting at White Pond. March 17, 1983, Dennis Sant I-84 sighting. March 24th, 1983, Taconic State Highway sighting. which was a huge sighting. October 28th, 1983, Jim Cook sighting at Croton Falls Reservoir. July 1984, Robert Pazzoli videotaped Brewster, New York. July 24th, 1984, sighting over the Indian Point nuclear power plant. November 1985, Yorktown Heights, New York, Maureen Davis sighting. She was a reference librarian. If you can't trust a reference librarian, who can you trust? Here's the overall map. This is a 10,000-foot look down on the whole sighting area, and I'm going to rip through just a couple of these pinpoint locations. So you've got the Hudson River. You've got Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. That's on the upper left. You've got Brewster, New York, which was huge. Mount Kisco, Wilton, Western, West Point, Bridgeport, Danbury, Connecticut played a major role in this series of sightings. We should listen very carefully to what the witnesses are seeing and describing to us. What are they telling us? What are they seeing? What are they reporting on the bottom of these craft? So I want to introduce you to Monique O'Driscoll. Just look at this woman, but look at the demeanor of her. Look at her spirit. Look at her soul. Look at what's coming through her eyes and her smile. Does this look like the type of woman that's lying to us? You can kind of see this innocence in her. This woman is not lying to us. And what she encountered, I think, is extraordinary. Let's continue here. So she's traveling home with her daughter. It was around 9 p.m. at night from Kent Cliffs to Lake Carmel. And her daughter's name was Monique, which I thought was interesting. So they're driving down this White Pond Road here. And Monique in the passenger side said, "Mom, look at that. What's that?" And so what they saw was a series of lights near White Pond here. And remember, this is freezing cold out. So she stepped on the gas and she was trying to intercept this thing, whatever it was, before it got to White Pond. And this is her original painting. Monique O'Driscoll, original painting of sighting at White Pond on February 26, 1983. So you've got the stars out, you've got the moon out. It's a frozen pond, so there was ice on the pond. You've got snow in the foreground, and you've got these bushes and things, and you can see her boomerang-shaped craft. It's got these multicolored lights on it. Really good. So see if we can clean this up a little bit. And I got to here. And what she described on the bottom of this craft is something that we should really pay attention to. Here is Philadelphia Inquirer, September 28th, 1984. You've got Monique kind of crouching down around the shoreline here, and there was someone off camera holding her painting, and they were overlaying it onto the pond. You can kind of see what they were doing here. They were doing like a simulation, so you get an idea of what Monique encountered that night. But here she is pointing out the details, and we've got the multicolored lights on the bottom of the craft. We've got a boomerang-shaped craft, and let's clean this up a little bit, and I'll take you over to here. Now you can kind of see the details coming out here on what Monique O'Driscoll saw on February 26, 1983. Citizen Register, September 11th, 1983. Let me hit you with what she said. This is her direct quote.
"I looked up and I saw whole mechanisms, long, tubular things, protruding from the bottom of the object, and it was covered with heavy metal grillwork."
I'm going to repeat those last three words. Heavy metal grillwork. So this is the first description of something very unusual. It's not sounding alien. It's not sounding extraterrestrial. It's sounding very man-made.
And not one sound from this thing. Something that size, if it had an airplane engine, it would shake our windows out. I could see the underbelly part. It's solid. It had metal-type work like crossbeams and tubular things hanging down here and there. I was so close, I could have thrown a ball and hit it. I followed it, and then it went poof, and it was gone that fast.
So here she talks about cross beams, tubular things hanging down, grid work, things on the underbelly of it. It's sounding like a man-made technology. So here was my absolute optimized rendering of her sighting with her daughter in the car, which had static on the radio. And you can see the crossbeam and girder construction. You can see the mechanical structure. You've got the multicolored flashing lights. And she said point blank that the lights on the bottom of the craft were reflecting on the ice below. She could see that reflection. Now, they were parked along the shoreline, and this thing flew directly over their vehicle at 60 feet altitude. Once it got over the ice, it made a 180-degree flat turn, and it was facing back at her, and she got a real good look at this thing. And it's sounding like a mechanical structured craft. It's really sounding like a man-made craft. All right, March 17th, 1983, sighting map. And let's go over the timeline here. If you look on the Hudson River on the left, and we go up to Cold Spring, so that was 7 p.m. And this is March 17th, 1983. 8:30, Croton on Hudson. 8:45, Peekskill. And then it looks like it kind of went over eastbound. So we've got 9 o'clock, Yorktown Heights, Bedford Hills. It looks like it kind of went northbound, 9:45. And then 10:30, we've got Ridgefield, Danbury, 10:45. So it was going from the north to the south, then it went back up, and then it looks like it broke lower right and then followed up in Danbury. Interesting flight path. Let me go take you to this location right here. I-84 plays a major role in these sightings. So 10 p.m., I-84, Brewster, New York. And that brings us to the overpass, which literally is ground zero for the March 17th, 1983 sighting. So this is Brewster, New York, I-84 overpass. If you were there at this location, and I've got it nailed down plus or minus 10 feet, if you were there on this night, on March 17th, 1983, and you parked your car right here, if you looked up, you would have saw something incredible. This is what we want to look at. This is what we want to consider. So this is I-84 overpass, Brewster, New York, March 17th, 1983. And we're going to discuss the Dennis Sant sighting. Now, it was around 8:45 p.m. Dennis and his family were driving home from a church engagement, and they saw some type of craft hovering over their house. They couldn't believe it. As they drove a little bit further, they lost sight of the craft. They pulled into their driveway, got out, was kind of like finishing up for the night, and then Dennis said that he felt something strange. He felt this feeling like falling in an elevator. So he went back outside, looked over, and saw this craft hovering over the I-84 overpass. And he thought, I wish it would come closer. And it actually did, like it was reading his mind. It started coming closer, parked itself across the street at the neighbor's house, and then started coming toward his house at treetop level. Now, can you imagine what this thing would look like hovering directly over you? We're talking about a football field sized craft with multicolored flashing lights and girder work and industrial mechanical structure on the bottom surface. This is a photo of Dennis Sant, courtesy of Unsolved Mysteries. I cleaned up their low-res version so we can get a good look at Dennis Sant. He was a deputy clerk for Putnam County, a reliable witness. And when he walked outside the house, this is what he saw. He also said that there were beaming spotlights shining down on the grass below, and this thing is hovering like 50 feet above him. He got a very good look at the bottom of this, and it said there were multicolored flashing lights. There were transparent panels that allow you to look up inside the interior structure, and it had this cross beam and girder construction with these beaming spotlights shining down that becomes very important in our subject.
I wanted to be underneath it. As I got out to the road, all the lights on the object suddenly intensified, illuminating the road as if it was a night football game in a stadium. As it hovered, I could make out dark, smoky colored metallic beams underneath, huge beams.
It's screaming a man-made technology. It's screaming something defense contractor. It's not really pointing toward something extraterrestrial. March 24th, 1983, the big event over the Taconic State Parkway. And ground zero for that night would have been Millwood, New York. And so you've got this busy expressway. People are pulling off to the side of the road. They're shutting off their vehicles. They're getting completely stopped traffic. They're looking up and they're seeing this boomerang-shaped craft that had this dark gray appearance. There were tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom of the vehicle. There were transparent panels on the bottom of the vehicle. There was a beaming spotlight shining down, like it was looking for something, like there was an intelligence, there was an intent behind this. Here is my map that shows you the path that this thing was flying. So if you look at the bottom, Millwood is ground zero. And then it made its way to New Yorktown Heights. This is March 24th, 1983. And you can see that it was following the path of the Taconic State Parkway. Like there was an intelligence and an intent behind it. Now, I'm going to do a blow up of what people reported. When this thing was hovering silently 10 feet above the treetops, right along the edge of the Taconic State Parkway, they said that it was making a silent, absolutely silent, flat turn, like it was on a pinwheel, like it was on a turntable. It did not bank like a B-2 bomber. It sat there parked and then made a 180-degree flat turn while all the lights on the bottom surface were embedded in concrete. They moved as one complete unit. You can't get that with planes flying in formation. I'm going to blow this up here. This shows you how this thing turned. This is like a 180-degree turn, like it was on a turntable with a record just sitting there. That's what the witnesses described. This is not planes flying in formation. I'm going to destroy that theory. So here's Taconic State Parkway, and you can kind of get a real good idea anywhere along here from that Millwood area up to Yorktown Heights. It kind of has this similar appearance, so you can kind of picture yourself pulled off to the side of the road looking up. And let me hit you with some of my best renderings here. I revisited these cases, I redid them, make them come alive through these illustrations. So again, we've got these bottom lights on the craft, we've got the mechanical structure, we've got the transparent panels, we've got people pulled off to the side of the road, and virtually all of them reported that there was a beaming spotlight shining down from the center of the vehicle like it was looking for something. Here's another rendering. Some people reported a boomerang-shaped craft with a triangle trailing edge. That's something we want to consider as well. Here's another version. You can see the hundreds of people pull off to the side of the road. And what shocks me about this is during 1983, even up to 1989, the talk of the town in this area permeated everywhere. I mean, this was an absolutely huge series of sightings 40 years ago. Now that it's so many decades later, it's almost completely forgotten. Almost all of the original witnesses are gone now. So we've got to preserve an important part of our national history. Here's another version here. You've got the white lights, you've got the mechanical structure, you've got literally thousands of witnesses that saw this. Let's do another one here. Same idea. White lights on the bottom and a beaming spotlight at the very center bottom of the craft itself. One more here for good measure, but if we could track down all of these witnesses, obviously we can't do that, but we're still talking about, even now, probably hundreds still remain, but the primary eyewitnesses that have gone on record, even in newspaper clippings and TV specials, they're all gone. One more here for good measure. This is March 24th, 1983, and this is one day after Ronald Reagan gave his address to the nation introducing Star Wars, or the SDI program, Strategic Defense Initiative. Patent Trader, Mount Kisco, New York, March 25th, 1983. This is one day after the event. What was that brightly colored object reported in area skies Thursday? That's interesting. The object was seen from White Plains, New York, to as far north as Yorktown. One witness described seeing alternating colors between white, green as the object zigzagged across the sky toward the north. So here's that flight path again. The Herald-Statesman, Yonkers, New York, May 22nd, 1983. Local UFOs called historical and interesting. The object was said to hover as low as 30 feet from the ground, make sudden right-angle turns, and emit a low humming noise. We could stop right there, right? Because you're not allowed to fly a plane, an ultralight, a Cessna, a 172 at that low altitude. It's illegal. One witness stated that if he climbed to the top of his roof, he could have hit it with a stick. So we're talking about something that's hovering literally at treetop level. We're not talking about airplanes and flying in formation. This is something else here. This is something more significant. The Reporter-Dispatch, February 25th, 1988. At the time, area police departments were deluged with reports of the object, most of them coming on March 24th, 1983. Traffic stopped on the Taconic State Parkway, and motorists got out of their cars to gawk at the night sky. I love it. The wording is perfect. Now, this is an original witness sighting, and she also filed a report with a sketch. Time, 9 to 9:15 approximately. Croton Avenue, Ossining, New York. This is March 24th, 1983. You've got her map here, and she's got Croton Avenue. If you look at the bottom here, she did a sketch of what the craft looks like. Here, she kind of talks about how she didn't get out of her vehicle to look at it, and she wished she did. She's got two sketches here. You can see it, Taconic State Parkway, and then at the bottom, we've got her car parked, and this boomerang-shaped craft is hovering directly over her car, and she's looking up at this thing. This is an original sketch. Let me hit you with my rendering of what she saw. This is at close range. This is a kind of person and range that could tell immediately that we're not dealing with planes flying in formation. This is something more significant here. They're not going to fool everybody here. You can't fool us all. March 24th, 1983, Taconic State Parkway, Millwood, New York. We want to consider the testimony of Ed Burns, an IBM program manager. This is the map of where he was. And then this is Jalen Hynek and Ed Burns, photo taken October 1983. So you see Jalen Hynek off to the left of the scene here at the station wagon, and Ed Burns is describing his sighting. So he's driving down the Taconic State Parkway. He hears static on his radio, and he looks up and he sees a big boomerang-shaped craft. He stopped the vehicle, pulled off to the side of the road, was looking up through the window at the bottom of the craft. Here is Jalen Hynek close up, taking shots of Ed Burns. Here's another one here, and this is from the APRO archives. I want to reference where I got the information. Here's Philip Imbrogno, Ed Burns, and Jalen Hynek. And then this is along the section of roadway where he had his sighting. And then one more here describing of what it actually looked like. So this is a credible IBM programmer. He's not lying to us. He can't be fooled by planes flying in formation trying to hoax a sighting. Here's the key elements of his sighting. Extremely large apparent size, much larger than a conventional aircraft, slow movement, complete absence of engine noise, a structured appearance suggesting a single craft, radio interference occurring immediately before the sighting. The object passed directly overhead. Burns told investigators, quote, "The lights became more profound. Then they came right over my car. I shut off the radio, rolled down the window, and looked out at this huge craft above me. I heard no noise. It was moving silently and slowly." So right there, if you examine just his only description, we can rule out airplanes for sure. I mean, this guy can't be fooled. So here's my rendering of what this guy saw looking out his car. This is not planes flying in formation. This is one object with lights embedded into the interior bottom of the structure here. You can't fool these people, even though the government might think they can. Investigation results. For March the 17th and March 24th, 1983, 90% of the witnesses reported a boomerang-shaped craft. 65% reported a buzzing or humming sound. Gene Mellon had a very interesting sighting at the Mount Storm ski slope. He was a 37-year-old correctional officer at the Fishkill State Prison, and he was with two young adults. They were pulling up to the entrance of the facility when he noticed a series of green lights that he thought were installation lights for a new slope at the Mount Storm ski slope. As he was entering the facility, he looked up and he saw a large, dark gray metallic boomerang-shaped craft hovering above his location. When he described the underbelly of the craft itself, he said it had tubes and it had pipes, it had cylinders on it. It had what looked like flash bulb cameras going off. He was just excited by what he was seeing. And then he said there was a concave section in the center of the craft itself. He said that he saw a mechanical structure on the bottom of a gray-colored metallic boomerang-shaped craft. He said that there were flash bulbs going off, and then he said that there was a concave circular section in the middle portion of this craft. There's no way this is planes flying information. This was within 100 feet of him. He got a real good look at the bottom of the structure here. Mr. Jim Cook was returning home from the late shift at his job. Mr. Cook, age 38, is an engineer who designs high-precision tools. He's not only has a background in science, but also in electronics. Driving home along Croton Falls Road, he noticed a well-lighted reddish object slowly moving in the sky. As he approached the Croton Falls Reservoir, the object descended rather quickly. He noticed that it was a V shape with quite a few red lights on it. He described the red as being similar to the red LED displays on digital readouts. He was driving later at night when he saw a boomerang-shaped craft hovering over the water. He parked his car, walked 200 feet through the woods, got up to the shoreline, and saw red lights on the bottom of a boomerang-shaped craft. And then he said that there was a red light projecting down onto the water below, and between the craft and the water, there was a screen, like a projection screen. That's what he described. Another good close-range sighting. This is October 28th, 1983, Croton Falls Reservoir. Reporter Dispatch, February 25th, 1988. Brewster couple baffles experts with tape of UFO. So this is Robert Prazzoli, and he's showing investigators his VCR tape. So this is like long time ago here. This is vintage 1980s, so you can see all of the home decor is got that 1980s look. So let me see if I can clean this up for you. Let me see if I can do a little bit better rendering and make this come alive, and I think the results are good. This gives you a real good idea of what this actually looks like when he was being interviewed. And if you look on the TV monitor, this is what he saw. He saw these lights flying in formation. They were blinking. They were staying in formation. It was a very interesting sighting. There were reports that he was getting people wanting to buy his footage. He never sold it. He wanted to be kept for student research and for national history. And then I want to take you here. The Reporter Dispatch, February 25th, 1988. They sent the film to JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And here's the result. A letter released last week from the director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, a division of NASA, suggests that the lights depicted in the tape were attached to one rigid object. So JPL signing off on it. That's their conclusion. They thought it was one craft. They did not say that it was planes flying in formation. Reporter Dispatch, February 25th, 1988. Pozzoli said that before the tape was made, he also shot a series of pilots flying in a V formation on the night of July 24th. He also was aware of the UFO sightings in the area from news reports. Quote, "We went outside to walk the dog out back and glanced up. This time, there was something that was totally different than the pilots. He said it was different because it appeared to rotate and did not break up like the pilots." So bottom line is, people who saw the authentic Hudson Valley Boomerang and people who saw the planes flying in formation could immediately tell the difference. So it's very clear that there are two things going on during the Hudson Valley UFO sightings during the 1980s. After sightings of the authentic UFO, private pilots flying small planes were sent in by government officials directly connected to the FAA to muddy the waters and discredit sightings of the authentic boomerang-shaped craft. That's what was going on here. That's absolutely what's going on here. So here we've got the Stormville Airport pilots, and it's at night. This would be March 24th, 1983. And a call came in that there was a boomerang sighting along the Taconic State Parkway. So the FAA alerted these pilots, and we've got the Cessna 172s in the background. They're convening here. They're conspiring of what they're going to do. So they hop in their planes. They take off from Stormville Airport. They fly along the Taconic State Parkway. And this is the result. So now you've got these planes in formation. They couldn't stay rock steady. You could hear the engine noise. You could see the lights. There was no fooling the people. They could tell the big difference here. And then here they are having a knee-slapping good old time back at the airport briefing room, like we pulled one over on everybody. Well, not so quick, because we've got the original eyewitness testimony and description of the flight path and the underbelly structure of the vehicle that looked nothing like the planes flying in formation. Some, but not all, sightings in Danbury, Connecticut were attributed to small engine Cessna 152 aircraft flying in formation. However, those who saw both the planes and the genuine Hudson Valley Boomerang could immediately tell the difference. We got one report that was to provide a lead to a possible cover-up of the UFO sightings. This report indicated that 20 minutes after the UFO vanished, a formation of planes was seen retracing the exact same route that the UFO had taken. As far as we could figure out, these planes seem to be trying to fake a UFO, and many people feel that it is an attempt to discredit the sightings and try to convince everyone that all they saw was a bunch of military aircraft. This comes from Philip Imbrogno's article, The Mysterious Night Flyers. Was this Cessna 02 Skymaster operated by the CIA to hoax UFO sightings over the Hudson Valley area during the 1980s? So we want to look at this Cessna Skymaster here, twin engine inline formation with a dual boom tail. Multiple reports were received of twin engine Cessna 02 type aircraft flying in formation immediately after the sightings of the genuine Hudson Valley Boomerang. And just reinforcing the point here, were these aircraft operated by the CIA used as a diversionary tactic to divert attention away from and discredit sightings of the authentic craft? That's the question we're asking here. So here are the Cessna Skymasters flying in formation. And again, you can tell the difference. They couldn't stay rock steady. They couldn't stay in a solid formation. There was always this wavering. You might get plus or minus 2 feet, but you'll never get the level of concrete rotation that the lights formed when the actual boomerang made a 180-degree flat turn. You could never duplicate that level of precision with planes flying in formation. Was there a covert CIA operation based out of Stewart Air National Guard Base during the 1980s? Times Union, Albany, New York, February 2nd, 1989. UFOs from the USA? So they're asking the question, is there a military connection between the Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings and the defense contractors of the early 1980s, specifically Northrop or others like Raytheon, TRW? Is there a connection here? Was some of the funding that went into Reagan's SDI program, was that funneled off, and money from the B-2 stealth program, was some of that money funneled and siphoned off to fund a deep black mobile airborne over-the-horizon radar system? Is that what we're dealing with here with the Hudson Valley Boomerang? June 14th, 1984, Peekskill, New York, Norman Morrissey. Now check out what this guy said. He got a real good look at this. He's a 33-year-old construction engineer, not the kind of guy you can fool. He spotted 9 lights in a V formation while walking from his home to his car. He heard no sound as the object passed overhead, but close observation revealed a dark grayish solid material, quite massive, connecting the lights in a triangular fashion. He compared the structure to steel girders on the frame of a building under construction. This is from International UFO Reporter, September-October 1984. You can't pull one over on this construction worker. He had a background in home construction, so he knew about 2x4s and he knew about trusses. This guy got a good look at this. So let me hit you with what he possibly saw. You've got the lights in the triangular formation. You've got this mechanical truss beam girder construction, like the beginning of a home. That's what this guy was describing. He wasn't describing an alien spaceship with a seamless exterior like a light ship. No, this is something completely different. It has all the telltale signs of a man-made craft. Now, July 24th, 1984, Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. Something absolutely significant happened over Indian Point on this night. I want to go into some of the details here. Reporter Dispatch, White Plains, New York, January 12, 1985. UFOs, did aliens buzz Indian Point plant? They're asking the question. But let me take you to some of the highlights from the investigators. Philip and Brogno did some good groundwork on this, and I want to highlight some of his findings here. Number 1, shotguns were drawn by the security guards. Number 2, National Guard was notified. New York Power Authority refused to release details. Object was 900 feet across, hovered over the plant for 15 minutes. Winds on the night of the sighting were gusting 24 miles an hour. A helicopter gunship was called to investigate. Carl Patrick, New York Power Authority spokesman, confirmed the sighting. And Larry Rosbeck, inspector for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, knew the security guards and vouched for their credibility. And number 10, a similar incident took place on June 14th, 1984. So what I want to do now, I just want to describe what they're talking about here. One security guard said that when he was looking at the craft through a video camera, it was so large, 900 feet across, and you can see the reactor here with the cooling tower, that he had to pan the camera 180 degrees to get the whole scene in shot here. July 24th, 1984, Night Siege, page 147, quote, no small planes could stay in formation with the wind that night. The wind didn't phase these lights at all. When it hovered, it just stood there. I was in the service and I flew helicopters, and I know how hard it is to keep a formation with small planes. I saw no hint of any standard lights that a plane would have. Also, the lights were much more too intense for small aircraft. So this is from one of the security guards. He knew it wasn't planes flying in formation. Details here. We talked about this a little bit, and I want to go down to the last one here. The guards broke out the shotguns. I thought that was an interesting quote. So this is 10:15 p.m. on the night of July 24th, 1984, when we had this 900-foot wide craft. Now, some of people describe this as an ice cream cone shaped craft with a round section at the back, and the configuration of the craft might look different as it's rotating around an axis here. Reporter Dispatch, January 12, 1985, again, did aliens buzz Indian Point? That's the question they're asking. Now, I want to take you to November 1985, Yorktown Heights. This is Maureen Davis, who was waiting for her husband at a stop. And she's a reference librarian. If you can't trust a reference librarian, who can you trust? Now, when we've heard about UFO sightings and black triangles, a lot of times we hear the description that these craft were the size of a football field. But in the case of Maureen Davis, as I love how Linda Zimmerman describes here, this was not the size of a football field. It was the size of a football stadium. It was 800 feet across. Black triangle, isosceles, 75-degree swept wing configuration. She said there was a white light at each corner. There was a series of white lights at the back of the craft. And then she said there was a red/amber light on the bottom of the vehicle going up inside what looked like a round iris. And then the interior, because she got a good look under this thing, she looked up and saw the under part of it. The interior section of this iris looked like concentric rings of a opera banister. That's what it looked like, almost like stacked apartment complexes with lights on the inside, but looking like an opera banister. That's exactly what was described by Maureen Davis on November of 1985. May 26, 1988, Midbury, Connecticut, I-84, Middlebury, Connecticut. So there's the map of this sighting. And let me take you to what these people saw. This is an overview shot down. This is about a 75-degree looking down on the scene. And you can see the configuration. You can see it's hovering directly over their vehicle, over their house. We've got the beaming spotlights coming down. We've got the different lights on the craft itself. But I want to take you to their exact testimony. Don't you want to? One witness to the UFO was Mrs. Betty Prue of Middlebury, who said that the object hovered over her house without a sound for over 2 minutes. There was no doubt in her mind that what she was looking at was one solid object. When Mr. Prue heard about the official explanation, he could not accept it since he was in the Air Division of the Navy. Quote, "It was one craft and like no aircraft that I had ever seen in my life." For 2 minutes, she got a real good look at it. It was not planes flying in formation. So that brings us to our good friend, Stanton Friedman. And I thought, I want to take you to his quote. This is in regards to a letter back from Stanton Friedman to researcher Tony Gonzalez. And this is what Stanton Friedman said generally about the Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings. Quote, "I have always been bothered by the Westchester County sightings because I never heard of actions that would clearly label the technology alien. Wings in outer space could only be decoration, but do of course match an earthling approach." Letter to Tony Gonzalez from Stanton Friedman, January 17, 1990. Well, I have to agree with Stanton Friedman, right? Why would aliens need wings? Why? I mean, they're not using lift, okay? Why would they have pipes and tubes and flashing lights and mechanical grid structure? Not only flashing lights, but flashing lights that go off in sequence up and down the bottom of the boomerang. So the reds would go off, the greens would go off, the yellows would go off, the whites would go off, and then the pattern would repeat back and forth, hovering over White Pond with the Monique O'Driscoll sighting. It's not referencing an alien technology. I'm stating that at least some of these Hudson Valley Boomerang sighting absolutely is a man-made craft, without a doubt. A significant majority of these unacknowledged special access programs, we're talking about black programs that were born black, died black, and we'll never hear anything about it. They bypass congressional oversight, no public scrutiny. They're ruling by their own set of playbook rules here. The point I want to make here is that we have paid for these programs with our tax dollars. So in a sense, we own a lot of the technology because we paid for it. And I want to thank everyone for their attention today. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'm open to any comments.